Welcome to OurSport. I'm Larry. I'm your host. John is always doing the recording and editing. And this is our first mock draft of the season. We're doing this before free agency. And let's start with the number one overall pick owned by the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals. This one's pretty easy. Joe Burrow looks like the simple pick. Don't ever underestimate the ability for the Bengals to do something stupid historically. But this looks more and more like they're going to go ahead and take Joe Burrow. It's the smart pick. His precision, accuracy is a good fit in any NFL system, and has much higher upside than veteran Andy Dalton. Looks like they're going to keep AJ Green there to help him out. A surefire pick. Almost everybody's predicting this one. Joe Burrow to the Bengals at 1. At 2, the Washington Redskins. We predict Chase Young, defensive end, Ohio State. There are rumors that they might not be happy with Dwayne Haskins. There was a story that he was so bad at reading the playbook, the coaches thought he was dyslexic. So who knows? He's not? Okay. We may have a pick out of the blue where they could pick Tua Tagovailoa, but I think Chase Young is the pick here. And then you look at what they have up front. They have Montez Sweat at one defensive end. They have Chase Young at the other. They have big guys in the interior, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. All these guys were first-round picks. All these guys have size and speed, and they're going to have maybe the best defensive line in football if they do this. It's too tempting. They've got to take Chase Young, pair him with Montez Sweat and all those other guys, give them an edge rush from both sides to go with the outstanding run defense they're going to have in the middle. At 3, the Detroit Lions, Jeffrey Okudah, corner out of Ohio State. There's some talk that they could trade Darius Slay, which would be a disaster if they did that. Slay is one of the better corners in the league, even if he wants to be paid too much. But if you take him and pair him with Okudah, now you've got a formidable tandem. And if you look at Matt Patricia's history, he's former assistant for Bill Belichick and has a lot of similarities, of course, learned under him. Look at one thing Belichick did. What does he do? He doesn't spend money in free agency. He never breaks the bank. He broke the bank for one player, which is Stephon Gilmore, the corner from Buffalo. He signed him with the Patriots. What does that tell you? They value that position. A big lockdown corner who's versatile and smart like Okudah has so much value to them in their system, so hard to find in the NFL, and that can make a lot of sense that Patricia thinks the same way Belichick does. And why have one of those corners when you can have two? You can do so much with your defense when you have two corners like that. At 4, the Giants, Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle, Louisville. This is a big need for the Giants, left tackle. They gave money to Nate Solder, and he has been okay, but they're paying him a fortune, and they may take his contract off the books. And look at Dave Gettleman, the GM of the Giants, the Peter Griffin of NFL executives. And he has an obsession with size, and which is not a bad thing, but he will reach for it. People thought he'd reach for Dexter Lawrence. I didn't necessarily think so. And this might be a bit of a reach. Becton is really talented, though. Rare size. It's a $20 cab ride to go around him. But this is exactly the kind of player that Gettleman takes according to his past history. This is the kind of player he would take. At 5, the Dolphins take Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama. We're not predicting trades in this draft. In this mock draft, we will in our very last mock draft, which will be the Sunday before the draft itself. And so we're just kind of sticking to the draft order as is. And according to this scenario, Tua falls to the Dolphins here because I don't think he's going to go this low. He's going to get taken before this in a trade. But here he is. Dolphins have very little talent around him. They've played really well considering how little talent they have. They maybe should have been the number one overall team in terms of the record, but they weren't. And they have just a chasm of talent on their offensive line, just a gap between them and the rest of the league. And this is a problem. Tua is a great player, got to be protected in order to execute the offense, but has to be protected to keep him from getting injured, which will make a lot of sense when we do our other 2 first-round picks for the Dolphins after this. At 6, the Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon. The Chargers could take another player. Isaiah Simmons will make a lot of sense. When you have Patrick Mahomes in your division, and you know you have to face him for the next dozen years, you've got to get faster on defense. You've got to make defense a priority because he's going to give you so many problems. But this team has no juice. Nobody's interested in this team. They couldn't sell out their home games in a 20,000-seat soccer stadium. So what do? You take the quarterback. And it's not like Herbert's a bad prospect. Herbert is a good prospect, fills a huge need now that Phillip Rivers is gone. And let's think about this. I've talked about this before. An NFL coach, an NFL GM. An NFL coach, John, what's his number one job?
Don't get fired.
Don't get fired. No matter what, don't get fired. So Anthony Lynn was on the hot seat last year. Well, here's what you do. You take a rookie quarterback and you buy yourself another year. You buy yourself a year after this. Because if you finish 5-11 this year, or 4-12, you say, well, our quarterback was a rookie. We can't stunt his progress. Look how much brighter the future is going to be after this year. Now that he's taken his lumps. Having said that, Herbert's not just a guy you take to save your job. Herbert is a legit player. John loves him, thinks he's a franchise quarterback. I'm starting to come around on that way of thinking. And you look at his intangibles, the Campbell Trophy that we talked about. Two-time academic All-American. I know he's not running for student body president, but that just shows you he's responsible. Players like that with these traits have very little chance to bust. He'll at least be a solid player. And then you look, 6'6", 236 with a rocket arm. That translates pretty well to the league too. At number 7, Carolina Panthers, Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn. Love him. Loved him all year. 326 pounds, hustles. Parents involved with his life. Both parents, solid foundation. They asked him, why did you play in your bowl game when players are skipping bowl games? He says, because I was elected captain, and that's what I'm supposed to do. Love the mentality. Rare hustle from a big man. You see big man take a lot of plays off. The dude plays great. He's a perfect fit. They need a defensive tackle, and Matt Rule has a new culture coming in. He's taking over the team for the first time, and you want a tone setter with that first pick. I can't think of a better tone setter than Derek Brown. The fit just makes such perfect sense. Any team would love him. Carolina gets lucky to get him at number 7. At number 8, the Cardinals, receiver, Jerry Jeudy. They do need other players. They do need offensive linemen. Their offensive line was kind of a disaster, and they did spend 3 picks on wide receivers last year. None of them were like this. None of them were like Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy is a stud. He's the best receiver in this draft. He's a supreme route runner. And what you're hoping for is that Kyler Murray, when the offensive line does inevitably break down at times and he has to make plays on his own, he's got to have a guy out there that'll make you pay for it. But Jerry Jeudy will make you pay for it. So you can take the offensive line, but then if the play breaks down, you can't have somebody in the back end that's going to hurt you as badly. Jeudy is polished. He's a technician, and he would be a great fit for the Cardinals, who in a deep offensive tackle draft might take their offensive tackle in round 2, and you can still get a good player there. At number 9, the Jaguars. C.J. Henderson, corner out of Florida. Maybe the second best corner in this draft. Okuda's the first by far. The second after that is, I think, a combination of 3 guys. But this all of a sudden has become a need for the Jaguars. They trade A.J. Boye for pennies on the dollar to the Broncos for a 4th-round pick to clear cap space. 2 years ago, they had maybe the best pair of corners in the league. Now those guys are both gone. And Henderson is just filling a need that they've created for themselves. But he's a good player. Big prototype in terms of size and speed. And, they like drafting Florida players, the Jaguars. Look back at their history. Not just Taven Bryan, Fred Taylor, other players. He's a good fit for what they need and not a reach at this pick at number 9. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns. All right, well, in the most Browns news of all time, their offensive line was a disaster last year to start with. And now their starting left tackle, Greg Robinson, just got arrested because the dude is trying to be a professional drug dealer as well as being a professional football player. He gets busted with 157 pounds of pot. I don't care how big you are. That's not smoking for fun. That's trying to make money off of it.
Smoke weed every day.
And this makes sense. This is very Browns. When you have 30, 40 million in net worth, you want to make an extra 90,000 on the side smelling weed. Very smart. So their offensive line was a total disaster with Greg Robinson. It's even worse now because his dumb ass is probably going to jail. And we predict the Browns take Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle out of Iowa. Athletic kid, blew up the combine, well coached, really, really a solid pick. Comes from Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, where he just puts out a ton of NFL linemen. Ferentz was the former offensive line coach for Bill Belichick with the Browns and really knows what he's doing. And very low bust factor on any highly rated Iowa player coming out of the offensive line out of that program. We talked about Robert Gallery. He was kind of a disaster pick. That was, we talked about that last episode. That was really the only one. You look, and Marshall Yonda, so many good players from this program, a safe pick, stable. That's what the Browns need more than anything. They need some stability in that program. I will say this. Don't underestimate the Browns' ability to mess this up either, just like the Bengals. The Browns have completely embraced analytics. They're all in on this. There's a chance they could trade this pick back, which is not a bad idea in this draft. But there's also a chance they can go all in analytics. And when they did that last time, they picked Corey Coleman out of Baylor. That was not a good pick. And there's so many good players in this draft, so many prospects that I almost can't imagine a player they would take here that would seem like a reach. But it's the Browns, so they could always surprise us with that. The New York Jets take offensive tackle Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. This is the biggest need for the Jets. Their new general manager, Joe Douglas, not that Joe Thomas. Joe Douglas likes to build on the line of scrimmage. He's made that a priority. And a deep offensive tackle draft class, there's still plenty of great ones left. You go ahead and take that guy. Sam Darnold's been up and down as a quarterback. He can make plays on the move. You have to give him protection if you can get it. Thomas is athletic, played right and left tackle at Georgia. He's more athletic than his teammate, Isaiah Wilson. And as a blindside blocker, as a prototype franchise left tackle, worth the pick here for the Jets. At 12, the now Las Vegas Raiders. This is a dream scenario. They had a lot of issues last year. Their biggest issue really was probably linebacker. And in this scenario, because of teams drafting for need, also for value, but need meeting value with a lot of these teams before them, reasonable picks. And who falls in their lap? But Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons, the athletic freak, the 238-pound linebacker, ran a 4.39 at the combine. Great character kid. Fills a huge need. Gives them a ton of speed in a division where they have to play Pat Mahomes. This would be a massive coup for the Raiders. And this scenario we presented with these other picks, this is not necessarily out of the realm of possibility that something like this could happen. They could get this player. They tried everything with linebacker last year. It was kind of a complete mess. And this is a perfect fit for them. Would be one of the biggest steals, a grand larceny pick for this draft. 13, the Indianapolis Colts take Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State. Scouts have a love-hate relationship with this player. His tape 2 years ago was outstanding. His tape last year, not so great. I kind of have mixed opinions about him. But here's one thing you have to understand about Love. Last year, when his statistically he fell, when his play fell, when everything regressed around him, what happened is he lost his offensive coordinator, he lost his head coach, and he lost 9 offensive starters around him. Almost all of his receivers, like 4 out of 5 receivers, all 3 running backs, almost his whole offensive line, a tight end that was drafted. He had all these players around him just leave, and they were part of a productive offense. Well, it could very well be that Love felt the effect of having to carry the team, pressing too hard. In terms of physical tools, NFL traits, he has them. Now, I worry about minor things when it comes to quarterback. I mean, if you're a defensive lineman, you could get in a bar fight. You could be throwing people out of windows in a bar. You could be a gun runner. I don't care. I want my defensive lineman a little crazy. But when it comes to quarterback, it's a different breed. And not that I'm against it personally. It's other people's business. But he was cited for marijuana possession 1 week before their bowl game. I don't like that. I don't like that in somebody who's supposed to be the face of your franchise. But he has some really good tape out there. And after Herbert, Love is the only quarterback that's, I think, reasonable to pick here. I don't think Jacob Eason or Jake Fromm are first-round pick values. And the Colts have a need at quarterback. Jacoby Brissett was up and down for them. And we'll say Brissett played better when he was healthy. He did get hurt last year. So they could still keep him. But I think Love would be a good fit for the Colts. At number 14, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another need meets value pick, a perfect fit. Defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, South Carolina. The Buccaneers have two stud linebackers, Levante David and Devin White, their first-round pick last year. And they missed Gerald McCoy, who was a declining asset. They had to let him go. But Kinlaw, with his rare size and length and athleticism, you put him right in the middle of the defense. He's almost like a shield. His big frame has to be accounted for, has to be double teamed most of the time, and frees up these linebackers with these undersized linebackers with blazing speed to roam all over the field. Defensive tackle, pass rush is a weakness. He'll also give you a little bit of that on the inside. And you put him with Shaquille Barrett on the outside with his 19 sacks, which we won't replicate. But those two together, a perfect fit for them and not bad value. At 15, the Denver Broncos. Another pick that would fit perfectly, which is kind of been the theme of this draft. Henry Ruggs, receiver out of Alabama. You look at what the Broncos have. They have a quarterback in Drew Lock last year, an early second-round pick that they took, who kind of got in on the field, struggled, and then got better as the year went on. Well, Lock's best quality is a cannon arm, and now you take the fastest player in the entire draft. You take a guy that can blow the top off a defense, that can scare opposing secondaries, and it can back them off, and then you have a tight end, Noah Fant, who's got a lot of blazing speed, and a perfect complementary receiver, Courtland Sutton. All of a sudden, you have a great receiving core for this young quarterback, and all those guys benefit from Henry Ruggs. He's got the same effect that Will Fuller has for the Texans, except he doesn't have the injury history that Will Fuller does. You look at the Texans, they are a different offense in points per game and the way the receivers are played when Fuller is on the field because he is fast. Ruggs is faster than Fuller. Ruggs might be already one of the 5 fastest players in the league once he gets in here. Blazing speed and a quarterback that could bomb the ball deep to him down the field. At 16, the Falcons, Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end, outside player, could be an outside linebacker out of Penn State. A lot of mocks have the Falcons taking Clavon Chasen, the defensive end out of LSU. I live in Atlanta, so I get more coverage of this team than any other. And he has, has a lot of comparisons to Vic Beasley. And I can tell you the fans, the last thing they want is another Vic Beasley. He is not a popular person. Matos is different. He's got a different build. He's a little bigger, a little stronger. And this is Atlanta's biggest need, except for maybe running back. I thought about mocking DeAndre Swift here because they badly need a running back. They missed Tevin Coleman when he left last year. Devontae Freeman is shot. Ito Smith is not a workhorse back. That's a crying need for them. But you take the line of scrimmage player first. You can get a running back later. The draft is not especially deep there, but the draft is definitely not deep in defensive end. So you take the pass rusher here. It fills your biggest need, and it's a player whose skill set is more rare than somebody who's going to be available in the second round. 17, the Dallas Cowboys. This is an odd team. It's really strange. They were a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense. And if you look at what they stopped on defense, they were top 11 against both the pass and the run. On offense, they were top 5 in both run and pass. Now, those are raw yardage totals. Those stats can be misleading. But this team had a strange year, kind of underachieved. And if you look at every game they've lost kind of the last 2 years, they've had one common symptom. They've got run on badly, up the middle, a lot of rushing yards. This year was no different. And they've kind of gotten by the past couple of years with pluggers, late round picks, overachievers, the orphans, as Rod Marinelli used to call them at defensive tackle. Well, it's time for the Cowboys to address their biggest need, and that's been their biggest need for years, defensive tackle. And Cowboys take Justin Blacklock out of TCU. Blacklock had an impact freshman season, had an Achilles tear as a sophomore, and bounced back and has been a little bit under the radar from fans because of that, because he missed all of last year. He would fill the biggest need on this team. Really, this team could use a safety and could have a few losses to free agency. I don't think so. Jerry Jones has really never lost a player that he wanted. But defensive tackle has been a huge need, and I could see them double dipping with this pick and getting another defensive tackle later in the draft as well. At 18, the Miami Dolphins. So according to our mock, with the number 5 pick, the Dolphins take Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama. And with this pick, you have to protect him. What has this league taught us? One of the many things. Quarterbacks, no matter their size, break in this league. And we're talking some of the biggest, strongest, most well-built, sturdiest quarterbacks. Andrew Luck, 6'4", 240. Cam Newton, 6'6", 250. Have been fighting injuries. It knocked Luck out of the league. It literally made him quit. And now you have a quarterback who is smaller and coming into the league injury prone. You got to protect him. I think what happened with the Colts taught the entire league. You've got to invest in your offensive line. At least the smart teams have taught him this. Invest in that offensive line. Spend priority picks in there. Don't go cheap and protect the quarterback. So the Dolphins take Jedrick Wills. Perfect fit. Perfect fit. He played right tackle Alabama, but because Tua is a left-handed quarterback, a southpaw, that was his blindside protector. He knows how to protect Tua. He knows how to play with him. He knows how to handle pass rushers with a quarterback that cannot sense the rush behind him. It is a good fit, and it definitely shows up a need. Miami's got a ton of needs, but you have this asset. You don't want him damaged. You want him on the field. Protect him. Jedrick Wills from Alabama for the Dolphins. At 19, the Las Vegas Raiders take Oklahoma receiver CeeDee Lamb. This is a great pick for the Raiders, who in our mock already got Isaiah Simmons, who fell to them at 12. Fills a huge need. Lamb is the third receiver off the board in our draft, but a lot of teams consider him the number 1 receiver in this draft in a deep receiver pool. And Lamb's different than the 2 guys before him. Those guys are speedsters to a certain extent, very much a technician in Jerry Jeudy's case. But Lamb compares favorably to Houston receiver Nuke Hopkins. He doesn't necessarily run the fastest time, but he does damage with the ball in his hands. Once he gets the ball in his hands, the play is just beginning. And John had a highlight of him in one of the early episodes where he's just weaving through the entire Kansas State defense. Like 8 guys can't get a hand on him. That's not new. That's not an outlier. That's a lot of his highlights, and a perfect kind of weapon for a quarterback that has some inconsistency issues. He can take the ball after the catch and make plays with it. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars had a weird year last year for a lot of reasons, and it didn't help that at the beginning of the year, Telvin Smith, for some head case reason, just announced his retirement on a 1-year basis. I'm just going to take this year off. Telvin Smith in his prime, a Pro Bowl player. Miles Jack, the other linebacker, did not play well. He has pre-existing injury issues that when he was coming into the league, it's why he dropped to the second round. And the Jaguars' biggest need, and they have a lot of needs, is probably linebacker. So the Jaguars take Kenneth Murray, linebacker, Oklahoma. Well regarded, killed his gold, character, 2 involved parents, production on the field, a ton of tackles, speed for a big man. You look at him, he looks a little small. He's just compact. He's about 240 pounds, and he runs well, plays all over the field. His instincts could be off a little bit. He can kind of run the wrong direction, but a great pick for the Jaguars at this spot. The Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles had a lot of injuries last year, and they had 2 big needs. Receiver and corner killed them pretty much the whole year. They could take a corner here. We're going to say they take Clemson receiver T. Higgins. Higgins is prototype. He's big and fast. He did have some games in the playoffs where he did not play as well. But the Eagles are desperate for receivers. They have guys like Alshon Jeffrey who are going to be hard to cut because of salary cap issues, and they need better production at that position. You got to help the quarterback. Carson Wentz's prime, could be injury prone. He's had a history of injuries except for this year. You don't know how long you're going to have him. You have to make the most of what you have, and you have to give him weapons. Somebody besides Zach Ertz. So T. Higgins to the Eagles. 22, the Buffalo Bills. The wide receiver run continues. If you look at what the Bills did last year through free agency, they tried to get weapons for Josh Allen, and some of those guys helped. But if you look at those guys, smaller, diminutive players. Speed guys take advantage of Allen's big arm, but they don't have a stud. They don't have a big receiver. So we say the Bills take Laviska Shenault, Colorado receiver. When you see Henry Ruggs run at the combine, you see him run his 40. He blazes through it, and you see how he's built. And Laviska Shenault comes right afterward. He looks like he doesn't even play the same position. That kid is so massive. That kid is so thick. His lower body is so thick, and a tough kid. He had a core muscle injury, played through the whole year, kind of limited him, and he still made big plays. If you look at his tape the year before, he was even better. And he had a first-round pedigree coming into the year. People were talking about him. Hurt, he still played well. Really rounds out the receiving core, gives them a complement different from the other receivers they had, and another weapon for their young quarterback in Buffalo. 23, the New England Patriots. Not a spot where you normally see the Patriots picking. And kind of unnoticed is that this team has gotten very old. This is one of the oldest teams in the league now, with or without Tom Brady. So what do the Patriots do? What does Belichick value? Belichick values defensive backs. And we have the Patriots taking safety Xavier McKinney from Alabama. There's the well-known association that Belichick has with Alabama coach Nick Saban. Grant Delpit is also a top safety on the board. Delpit had significant tackling issues. I cannot see Bill Belichick taking a safety with tackling issues. McKinney's versatile. He played a lot of positions in Alabama. He's smart. He's well regarded. And Nick Saban is not going to recruit a dumb defensive back. He also prioritizes that, and that was his specialty. It's going to translate very well to the Patriots with this pick, and it will help them get younger. They're going to need to have a lot of the draft picks hit in this draft. The New Orleans Saints. Saints have been this close to the Super Bowl for about 3 straight years. They got a strong roster. So we have them taking Alabama cornerback Trevon Diggs. Diggs is big, he's physical. Another Alabama player back-to-back here. They're good in the secondary. Marshall Lattimore had a bounce-back year, is again one of the best corners in the league, and recovered from kind of a sophomore slump. The other side is a problem spot. They traded for Eli Apple. He was up and down. And now you take Trevon Diggs and you pair him with Lattimore. You have 2 strong candidates at corner to lock down receivers. The rest of the team the roster is so strong. They are really close, and a player like Diggs is going to help them a lot. 25, the Minnesota Vikings. You look at Mike Zimmer's history. What does he prioritize? He very much values the cornerback position. First rounder on Trey Waynes. First rounder on Xavier Rhodes. Second rounder on Mackenzie Alexander. They took Alexander when they had good corners already. Xavier Rhodes has kind of fallen off a cliff. This whole defense has kind of been together for a long time, and now they have a huge cap number. They need to get younger, and so we have them taking Clemson corner A.J. Terrell. There was some talk that they could take Trevon Diggs. Stephon Diggs' brother. Stephon Diggs, the one already on the team, he's had some issues with the team. He's been kind of a drama queen. And there was talk that you could take his brother to kind of settle him down. I think it's the opposite. I think you avoid that. If you take his brother, it almost gives him somebody in the locker room who's already on his side, who's going to do what he wants to do, not what the Vikings want him to do. So Terrell is a good prospect, very similar to Diggs. Very close on the draft board in terms of rankings. 6'1", had a great showing at the Combine. Good at Clemson. Playmaker at Clemson, and fills the need for what Mike Zimmer loves. Loves the big corners they can run, bases his whole defense around it. 26, Miami Dolphins. So does the Dolphins' third pick. The first pick, we have them taking Tua Tagovailoa. With their second pick in this draft, we had them in this round, we had them taking Jedrick Wills, the right tackle who is essentially Tua's blindside protector because he's a southpaw. And with this pick, the Dolphins take Austin Jackson, the left tackle from USC. As I said before, if you have a quarterback, young prospect you take in the top 5, you got to protect him. You can't let him get hit. And much like Wills, who has familiarity with Tua, who can grow with him, now Jackson on the other side. Kind of similar in a way to Tyron Smith in the fact that he's athletic, he's from USC, and he's young. He's only 20 years old. He's one of the youngest players in this draft, an enormous amount of upside. Now you've got 2 bookend tackles, and when Jackson goes through his growing pains, at least pressure allowed from that side of the field, Tua's going to be looking right at it. He has a better chance to escape from it with Wills guarding his backside. 2 offensive tackles to protect your quarterback. Kind of unusual strategy. Flores is a Belichick disciple. You could see him taking a defensive back or somebody on defense, but this is not, it's an unorthodox, but it's a good strategy to ensure that your investment is with your team for decades to come, or not decades, but you want to maximize his potential, get the most out of it as long as you can. The Seattle Seahawks. Marlon Davidson, defensive lineman out of Auburn. I say defensive lineman because he can play end, he can play tackle. Davidson is kind of growing up on draft boards. He's over 300 pounds, but plays with a lot of energy. Daniel Jeremiah called what he and Derek Brown had maniacal effort. Love it. Love it. Pete Carroll loves it too. Their front, Jerron Reed's been up and down, may leave the team. They may lose Jadeveon Clowney. And Pete Carroll's always put an emphasis on pressure from the front four. He likes to play that cover three scheme, and he's not a heavy blitzer. He relies on that pressure. Davidson can slide up and down the line. Versatile. Good competition. 4-year player at Auburn. Durable. Did not get hurt. And unlike a lot of big guys, you don't have to motivate him to play hard. You watch his film. He does play hard. A good fit in this game. A guy Pete Carroll would love to have in Seattle. The Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. Don't have a lot of needs, but they could use another pass rusher, as every team could. No team's ever said, boy, we have enough pass rushers. They have Matthew Judon, but they lost Terrell Suggs earlier. They lost Zadarius Smith the year before that to the Green Bay Packers free agency. So we have the Ravens taking K'Lavon Chasen out of LSU. Pair him with Judon, get a rusher from both sides. Fills one of the few needs the Ravens have. The Ravens are Super Bowl ready. Lamar Jackson at MVP, they're going to be a force, and he can make an instant impact. Chason is probably the last edge rusher left on the board who is capable of making an impact next year, at least according to scouts. At 29, the Tennessee Titans, fresh off an appearance in an AFC Championship game. Like the Ravens, they're close, and similar to the Ravens, they're kind of have one good young pass rusher in Harold Landry and some kind of older entities and some unproven entities on the other side. So we have the Titans taking Josh Uche, outside backer out of Michigan. Uche is 6'1", he's about 240, he's a little light for end. He's going to have to play in a 2-point stance in the odd front. He's going to have to stay on his feet, and despite that size, he has long arms. He has a lot of length, and he's got juice, he's got burst, he's very productive, and if you look at a lot of the analytics, a lot of the stat guys, what they said is that after Chase Young, Uche was probably the best pass rusher in the Big Ten and really one of the best in the entire country. Put him on the other side of Harold Landry, get after the quarterback from two sides, close to the Super Bowl, get there with some more pass rush. The Green Bay Packers are 30. The Packers have a glaring need at receiver. They could take one here, but they also have a need on the offensive line. You want to protect Aaron Rodgers while you still have him in the midst of his prime. This is a deep receiver draft. You can get one later. The offensive tackles, though it is deep, you're not going to get one late in the second round. So the Packers take Isaiah Wilson, massive right tackle out of Georgia. 6'6", 350, athletic for his size. Not quite what Mekhi Becton is, but certainly worthy of a first-round pick. Me and John were at the Georgia-South Carolina game a few years ago, and we had a good look at Wilson close up. We had close seats. We were about fourth row, and man, that kid is enormous. I mean, you don't understand until you see him. He walked up to the sideline. He was just feet from us, and even among the Georgia players, he stood out with how big he is. A body more than built for the NFL, a line of scrimmage player to protect your best asset, Aaron Rodgers, as the Packers can make another run to the Super Bowl. They can get plenty of wideouts in a second or third or later rounds. This is a really good draft for that. They can take that player later and get the offensive lineman while they can now. At 31, the NFC champs, the 49ers, fresh off a strange loss in the Super Bowl. On the line of scrimmage, they're pretty good. They could use a replacement for Joe Staley eventually. He's still got game. The entire defensive line is young, full of first-round picks, under contract, has depth. The quarterback, apparently, they believe in unless they're going to get Tom Brady, which is rumored strongly. But they could use help in the secondary. Not a corner worth taking at this pick, but Grant Delpit from LSU is on the board. Grant Delpit to the 49ers. Delpit really had a better season 2 years ago than this season. Missed tackles were a problem, but 2 years ago they weren't. And he had a significant shoulder injury. A shoulder injury is one of the things that's going to most impede your ability to be a good tackler. Well, besides maybe like a bum leg, of course, you can't get there. But he could get to the spots. He was just flat out missing tackles. Who knows? Or maybe he's just not a good tackler, and maybe that's really what he is. But at 31, this is a value pick and fills a need for aging and injured Jimmy Ward, a replacement for him in LSU's Grant Delpit. So the Kansas City Chiefs, world champs. Ever since Kareem Hunt left, they have been lacking at running back. And they could use a running back that has kind of a three-down kind of skill set, like DeAndre Swift or somebody like that. But Jonathan Taylor is hard to pass up. He's at the receiving back, Swift is, but he has size. And think about how the Chiefs are built. They're built on speed. They're built on blazing speed everywhere. McCole Hardman, Kelsey, and of course Tyreek Hill. Well, Taylor is 230 pounds with 4.41 speed, a two-time 100-meter champ in track in the state of New Jersey. Put him in there and give Patrick Mahomes balance in the run game. Something that can help you in cold weather when, I don't know, Mahomes is going to play well no matter what. But if you have the run game where the safeties have to come down and leave huge voids in the back of the defense for Pat Mahomes, the offense becomes almost unstoppable, if it isn't already. Jonathan Taylor, stud running back, great character, great kid. As we talked about before, had a scholarship offer to Harvard, smart, well-spoken, and what can you do if you're smart? Can pick up protections. Big enough to do it, has enough arm length. With somebody like DeAndre Swift, I worry about him because you've got to protect that quarterback. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, short arms. Hard to protect the quarterback with short arms. Taylor has enough length and the smarts to pick up protections to help the quarterback to keep him from getting injured. Really, you wouldn't think so, but kind of a perfect fit for the Chiefs at this spot.
Hello, it's John. Thank you for watching this episode of OurSport. If you like this episode, don't forget to like down below and subscribe for more of our content. We're going to be coming out with a lot of stuff soon. More draft coverage as the draft looms closer. More mock drafts coming out as free agency starts to close down. We see where players fall, particularly, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, where those guys land. And then I'll be doing my second breakdown on a specific player next episode on Kenneth Murray, linebacker from Oklahoma, who was featured this video. If you want to know more about what we're about here, check out the inaugural episode down in the description box. And if you have any other recommendations for topics for us to cover, whether it be player, coach, team, whatever it is, you can leave it in the comment section, or you can come into contact with us on Twitter, Facebook, Gmail. It should all be in the description box down below as well. And as always, thank you for watching.